Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
Happy Monday, all you Minties. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at the Ultimate X-Men Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. Bub. I had to say Bub. Wolverine looks so awesome on that cover. Let's get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on February 27th or 28th, depending on where you get your books. This is the direct market cover that we're looking at right here. This is the one that's supplied by Andy Kubert. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover, and that one is supplied by David Finch. That one is available everywhere, but the direct market cover by Kubert, that one is only available at places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, readcomics.com, comicsbugle.com, organicpricebooks.com, instocktrades.com, talesofwonder.com, dyingbreedcollectors.com. But everything underneath the dust jacket is the same. So let's take a closer look at this copy right here. So here is the cover to issue number 50, featuring Ultimate Colossus, Ultimate Storm, I'm not going to say Ultimate each character, you get the idea, Nightcrawler, Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Wolverine right there. And the spine, featuring the Marvel Omnibus logo there, Ultimate X-Men, Cyclops, and Volume 2. And then the back of the book, the design, where you have all the covers in the back, and they're all textless covers, and you have the ISBN, rated teen, and $125. Uncanny Creators Ultimate X-Men. This does collect a lot, but before we look at what exactly is collected in here, just wanted to show how the spines would look on your shelf once you have the books together. Now, of course, there is enough material for a Volume 3, none solicited yet or announced yet, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, because this is where you get your breaking news in the Marvel Collected Editions. But I'm hoping they will, and it would be interesting to see what's collected in there, especially if this goes all the way to issue 100. But anyway, this is what it looks like together, or will look like together on the shelf. And if you have the OHCs, believe it or not, this collects 4 of the oversized hardcovers. Volumes 4, 5, 6, and Volume 7. That is a lot of Ultimate X-Men that's collected in one omnibus, whereas Volume 1, of course, collected just the first 3. So let's shift the focus back to this. And if you're asking, wait a second, didn't this Volume 6 oversized hardcover collect the Ultimate X-Men half issue? That is collected in Ultimate X-Men Omnibus Volume 1. So just wanted to make sure that you knew that everything is collected in omnibus format now. Here comes the New Mutants. Is just a little bit of what happens in this book, and then the creators over here on the right hand side. And you do have 3 different writers writing the particular story of the X-Men. I love this image underneath the dust jacket. It's this awesome spread by David Finch of the Ultimate X-Men during Bendis' run. So I'm going to crack this book open. We're going to look at the artwork, talk about the stories collected in here. If you haven't read Volume 1, all you need to know is that this is set in an alternate universe. It's not the 616 universe, so it's a different take. It's a different incarnation of the X-Men. So things play out different. And I guess minor spoilers, but let's talk about what's collected in here first. All right, let's go ahead and crack this open. You have this yellow, bright yellow end sheet, same as you found in Volume 1. Ultimate X-Men, this image right here by Andy Kubert, where the team changes. And then your table of contents right here. You have 4 different writers, 3 being the main writers of the book. Brian Michael Bendis, and then you have the Brian K. Vaughan run, and then you have the Robert Kirkman run. But in between, they're all actually collecting the Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Fantastic Four miniseries in here. So you have Mike Carey writing those stories, and each of the arcs broken up by the different artists with the inkers. So you have people like David Finch being the penciler, Art Thibert doing some of the inks, Danny Mickey. Then you have Brandon Peterson and Justin Ponser doing the coloring there. Andy Kubert coming back with Danny Mickey and John Dell inking. Justin Ponser still coloring the books, with Paul Mounts later on, Stuart Eminem coming in. Steve Dillon doing one issue in here. Pasquale Ferry doing an arc. Tom Raney, Ben Oliver, Salvador La Roca, Lionel Francis Yu. And previously in Ultimate X-Men. Does anybody else say that in the voice of Cyclops, the narrator from the animated series? Previously on X-Men. That guy? Yeah. Anybody? Nope, just me. Okay. So collected in here is Ultimate X-Men 34 through 74, Annuals 1 and 2, Ultimate X-Men Fantastic Four number 1, and Ultimate Fantastic Four X-Men number 1. Yes, there were two different series. 1,160 pages, $125. Now, moving forward, minor spoilers, talking about some of the stories in here, and some of them that have previously happened in previous arcs. So, in case you haven't read Volume 1, just want to cover my bases. Okay, let's dive in here and talk about the return of Wolverine, but he's not coming back straight to the X-Men. What he's actually doing is just coming back to New York, since he took a little leave of absence in the last volume after the big fight with the Return of the King storyline, which you can read for yourself. So now what we're entering is the Brian Michael Bendis era of Ultimate X-Men. So this is after Mark Millar left the book, after Adam Kubert left the book. Now it is Brian Michael Bendis, and he's bringing somebody familiar to everyone, and that is Ultimate Spider-Man along for the ride. So this is a big team up between Wolverine and Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Wolverine. I'm not going to keep saying Ultimate characters, but this is the Ultimate version because this is set in another universe. But not just them. Also featured in here is Daredevil. It's the Ultimate version of Daredevil. And what's happening through this is that Wolverine's being hunted down by a rogue group of what appears to be government agents, but then they could be working for another secret organization. And then you find out that they are, in fact, working for, maybe, not anymore, for part of the Weapon X. So they're trying to terminate Wolverine, and they're doing it with some unique weaponry that they've stolen, such as adamantium bullets. And it's pretty hardcore, and it gets dark where this goes. Meanwhile, Jean is still suffering from these headaches and illusions, that she keeps seeing this burning bird, she sees it over people, and she almost becomes really addicted to these visions that she's seeing. So that's the first story arc that brings these characters together, and of course brings the team back together with Wolverine. The next story arc that appears through here, lots of beautiful artwork by David Finch. The next story arc is called the New Mutants story arc, also written by Bendis, and introduces us to a new cast of characters like Dazzler. You have Angel appearing through here. This is a really good, almost like a one-shot story about a mutant that his powers are just making this entire town disappear, including his family. And eventually it goes into places that gets a little dark and leads into the whole president working with Emma Frost. So Emma Frost actually has, Ultimate Emma Frost that is, of course, has a history with Professor X, and you can find out what that history is by reading the book. But pretty much the government is building their own team of mutants because they do have a fear of mutants. So how do you fight a threat? Well, you make your own team of mutants, and you can find out exactly who's on that team. And sadly with that, there is death during that era that surprised a lot of people. Some people, I remember when this was coming out, people were pissed that Bendis decided to kill off a character, and well, you can find out who the character is, and you can agree or disagree with those people. And then we have Brian K. Vaughan coming into the book. And when Brian K. Vaughan starts the book, he's teamed up with Brandon Peterson. We are introduced to Ultimate North Star here, but introduced to this villain, and it's a really interesting take on Sinister. Like I mentioned, Brandon Peterson doing the artwork, and it never ceases to amaze me what Brian K. Vaughan is capable of doing. Yes, we've seen these storylines before, mutants hating on each other, but why exactly is Sinister hunting down mutants. What is it that drives him to hunt down mutants? And when you find out what it is and you got to figure it out, you're like, oh, okay, that's where it's going. Just keep reading is all I will say. But love to see Brandon Peterson come back, and love to see his new look to his art. Speaking of new looks, Storm gets a new look for reasons. Brandon Peterson first started out, I remember, in X-Men during the Executioner song, and he had this Jim Lee look to his art. But I mean, the guy blew up. I remember when I came back to comics and he was drawing over at CrossGen. He had developed this new style. I don't know, it was just something about it with the colors and everything. It just looked great. But as I was saying, you are introduced to New Mutants through here. And this story arc right here that features the Sinister character leads into the next story arc. And the Sinister story arc wraps up with an invasion at the mansion. And Sinister just has one of these most over-the-top jokes that I think people still quote to this day. And you can find out what that quote is. Man, you've probably seen it if you've been around on the internet. Gambit comes back when Andy Kubert decides to come back again, written by Brian K. Vaughan. This time around, he is joined by Fenris, and that leads to some big changes for the lineup of the Ultimate X-Men team. Now, Stuart Eminem joins on the fun while Brian K. Vaughan is still writing these issues, and introduces us to Mojo and hunting down mutants, but he makes a game out of it. He makes like a TV show out of it. And of course, we're introduced to Longshot. And Stuart Eminem, with his very cartoony style, that's Ultimate Arcade here. And of course, when the X-Men find out about this, they go and investigate with a new team member, Dazzler, and some more new team members, or people that have been in the background for a while, but now taking a bigger spotlight on the team. And what I was saying about Stuart Eminem's art style here, it looks a lot different. That's one of my favorite things about Eminem, is that he was always able to just change his style up through the years. Like, it's amazing that this is the same guy that did, like, the Final Night crossover for DC, and later on, even his art in Ultimate Spider-Man looks different than this. I like artists like that. I love, don't get me wrong, I love Silvestri. I love Jim Lee, Mignola, but it seems like some artists just stop changing. And artists like Stuart Eminem or like Rick Leonardi, I always love because they never stop changing, no matter how older they get. And I think he's still working on independent books. I know him and his wife, Catherine. I need to bring back Hidden Gems because I wanted to talk about one particular book. This is the Steve Dillon book. That's a really powerful story. It's kind of a solo story between Professor X and another mutant. This is the story that shows who the new Lady Deathstrike is, or I guess who Ultimate Lady Deathstrike is, and what ties she has with Rogue. The first annual right here with Tom Raney on art, but written by Brian K. Vaughan, that has a showdown between Juggernaut and Gambit. And I believe there is a story that's collected in annual number 2, and it's Why is Professor Xavier's cat named Mystique? Then we have the Magnetic North storyline that you can probably guess what character comes back just based on the name here. And this one feels more like a tie-in to the X-Men 2 movie than the rest of the storylines in here. Now, after Magnetic North, that's when Brian K. Vaughan leaves the book, and we have the 2-issue big fight between the Ultimate Fantastic Four and the Ultimate X-Men, drawn by Pasquale Ferry and Lionel Francis Yu, and written by Mike Carey. Of course, miscommunication leads to a fight, and then later, a team-up. And this is when Robert Kirkman takes over the book. So Kirkman straight up, like, as soon as he takes over the book, he starts off with some new ideas that some of the other writers have kind of been building up to. We've been hinted at Phoenix, Tom Raney now, the ongoing artist. But he really changes a lot of the things. For example, this is the introduction of Lilandra here. Is she a princess from outer space? Or is she really in charge of this church that worships something known as the Phoenix? Well, you can read about it here. There's a really interesting relationship that happens between Nightcrawler and Dazzler that's not really resolved until later on, like in annual number 2. And then we're introduced to one of the most interesting characters in Robert Kirkman's run. And that is this character right here, Elliot Boggs, or AKA Magician, who will end up joining the X-Men. Now, there is no 616 counterpart of Elliot. He's one of these characters, much like in Ultimate Spider-Man, whenever Bendis created a new character, that was created specifically for the Ultimate Universe. I really like Raney's artwork, especially during this era. Ben Albert comes in on the book, and this is during the Phoenix arc. So what exactly is going on with Jean Grey? Is it tied to outer space? Is it tied more to something sinister going on? Well, that's when things start really coming together for this. That kind of leads into the next story arc. But it is this Phoenix storyline that wraps up this omnibus. And then we get the Ultimate X-Men annual number 2 that features the characters of Nightcrawler and Dazzler. Now, all the way in the back, you do see the Ultimate script for issue number 41 by Brian Michael Bendis. Oh, but you do have some covers here. This is the variant cover by Olivier Coipel, and the Ultimate Collection Volume 4 trade paperback cover by Mark Brooks. The script for issue number 41, a deleted scene from Ultimate X-Men, an introduction here and an outline by Brian K. Vaughan, some character designs for Dazzler, Longshot, covers, and this is just, of course, pencils, and by David Finch, of course. Right before the inks, and then Brandon Peterson right there, who inks his own work. Andy Kubert, Tom Raney, unused cover sketches there. Had to skip a couple of pages because it just revealed too much about one of the twists in the book. And then the cover there to Ultimate Annual number 2 and the end sheets. 1,160 pages, printed at the Donnelly printer. So, it's been a while since I've seen a Donnelly printer from Marvel, outside of the Masterworks and some of the older stuff that they've done. But this one, the way it lays over, it's beautiful. There's hardly any gutter loss. The paper stock honestly seems like the last few Donnelly printer paper stock. Not as thick as it used to be. I mean, we are talking about Donnelly's been with Marvel for a long time, over a decade. But minimal bleed through happening. But it does happen. Mainly on white paper or whenever there's light colors. I did want to get this out right here because these did have thicker paper stock. There's still minimal bleed through happening, but not as noticeable as over here on the Omnibus. But my goodness, I remember these just did not lay over, so there's a lot of gutter loss happening here compared to the way that the Omnibus version lays over. But you did get thicker paper back then. And the color, honestly, looks a little more vibrant over here in the new printing. Could be also the paper stock that they're using, right? The color is absorbed differently by different types of paper. And yeah, one more time so you can see. And I forget that these books over here just want to try to close on me. All right, but that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price.
And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you already have it in Ultimate Collections, if you already have the trade paperbacks, the single issues, or the oversized hardcovers, and if you do, if you're upgrading to this omnibus, and what you're hoping Volume 3 will collect. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Check out our Patreon and Spreadshop, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. But that's it for me, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.